Hi, I'm Kailan. I'm reporting for BeeBeeQ Games at EGX Rezzed, and I'm here with
Martin Ashford.
Here to talk about BeeBeeQ. Might as well start off with like the obvious question, since this has kind of flown under the radar. What is BeeBeeQ?
So BeeBeeQ is an asymmetrical VR party game. It's 4 people on control pads in split screen behind me, versus 1 person in virtual reality. The guy in virtual reality plays a chef, and the guys on control pads play bees, trying to torment the chef, and the chef's trying to defend himself, or vice versa, depending on your point of view.
Yeah, so as you're trying to combat against bees, which are trying to sting you and just wreck your day forever, how many tools are on hand to kind of help keep them at bay?
So currently we have about 5 or 6 in there at the moment. But really it's an ever-growing list of things. I think we currently have about 50 or 60 set up, down to every little tiny stone in the game can be picked up and thrown as a weapon, or a brick can be used. Anything that you can see in the game, we're going to try and make it be usable as a weapon, even down to toasters or kettles in the kitchen. So we're trying to make it as fun and just silly as possible.
Yeah, just really just weird as hell.
Absolute madness.
So the area that I'm a bit unsure of is like, so the bees are trying to sting the fat guy, and the fat guy's trying to keep them at bay. Is it just a strict death match, or is it there, or are there like a variety of modes and kind of like reasons to keep the bees back?
So we're currently showing deathmatch, but we also have with us a cook-off mode, which is the chef has to cook as much food as possible, and the bees are trying to stop him. And there's a vague narrative around that, where there's smoke coming from the barbecue, smoke out the bees, they're getting a bit angry, but he has to cook for his family. So we've got some minor narrative stuff going in there just to kind of make it a little bit more fun. But other levels and modes include stealth levels in the kitchen. So the bees are trapped in the kitchen, they have to try and get out through the window, but the chef's like, oh, there's bees in my kitchen, so, you know, just trying to kill them before they get out. It's all sort of loose narrative stuff that makes it just a little bit more fun and a little bit more engaging. But altogether, so far, we have 4 levels built, 1 level with us today. Each level will have at least 2 game modes, so deathmatch and that minor story mode, or sort of challenge mode. And we've got another 2 levels in the works, one of which I'm quite proud of, which is a dream level where you have to, the chef's asleep in front of you, and you're kind of astral projecting out over your own body, and you have to protect your body in your sleep. So they're all really loopy, silly modes, but that's what kind of, we just want to make VR as fun and social as possible, bring people together instead of having this kind of barrier between people just watching you play a game.
I mean, speaking of barriers, like VR can present a barrier for those, like those who might suffer like motion sickness, because VR has been known to cause that in the past. I've even felt it with 1 or 2 games. So how has BeeBeeQ kind of tried to circumnavigate and avoid the motion sickness issue?
Well, so with BeeBeeQ, you're in an arena. Every level is an arena. The only movement you can do is within your play area you have. Every level is set up to be between 1 by 1 and 5 by 5. So that means that if you have 5 by 5 area of space, meters, then you can play in an arena that big. Most people don't. They only have a 1 by 1, which means they can also still play, but they just don't have they can't go as far. So we tried to make it as inclusive, but there's no way you will ever get motion sickness, because it's one-to-one movement within the arena. We're not moving you outside of your actual space. So fingers crossed, no one will ever get sick. No one has got sick so far, and we want it to be as a comfortable experience as possible.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of like the 5 by 5 space, like where you're actually moving around, it's that kind of system. Would your game be accessible for those in a wheelchair? You know, would they still be able to move around and play the game in a VR form?
So I think so. there's no reason why you have to leave the 1-by-1 space. You can be stood or even seated and still play the game. It's really just levels of immersion. If you want to move around, we give people the ability to, but it doesn't add anything to the actual game by being able to. You're the target, so you haven't got really something to protect. In the challenge modes, if there's something to protect, it's always directly in front of you when you start the game. So we tried our best to make the entire experience as inclusive as possible.
Awesome. Moving on to the bees. So in the heat of battle, and as all the bees are flying around madly, sometimes it's nice to be able to recognize a specific player trying to kind of sting the back of your head. Would you be able to kind of put like cosmetics on your bee, just kind of a little flair to show this is who you are?
I think it's a nice idea, definitely. We're only a 2-man team, and we only make games in our free time. It's not our day job at all. So it's just evenings and weekends. So we try our best to get as much content in as possible and make it really as full as a game as you can make it in that amount of time. We're probably thinking of making it so you can pick colours or colorizing the trails that the bees leave behind them. At the moment, that's pretty much our only real idea. I mean, we could change the colours of the bees themselves, but we're not 100% sure whether that's the best place to invest our time. We have made hats for the chef, so in the lobby level at the start, you will be able to swap out, well, the bees will be able to pick up a hat and drop it onto the chef, and then he'll be stuck with that hat for the remainder of the game. But we still need to dev that and put that in. But it's little things like that make the game fun.
Oh, totally. Like, people love making a character their own, and showing that they were the one who just kind of kept seeing them in the back of the head, or somehow calling all over the newspaper they're holding. When it comes to flighting games, sometimes it can be a very awkward affair because it's basically dealing with all the axes like X, Y, Z. How were you able to kind of develop controls for it?
I mean, the controls are still something that we're working on. They're evolving all the time. As soon as somebody gives us a suggestion of a new control scheme that they would like in the game, we add it in. We currently have 2 control schemes available at the moment, which is driving with the forwards and backwards with the triggers, and also forwards and backwards on the control stick. 6 degrees of freedom of movement is really hard to get right. Once people get used to it, whichever one they pick, they seem to really understand it. And I know Mark and I are now quite good with the controls, but that's because we're used to them. We're always looking for feedback and more kind of options. But the more we put in, the more options people have, and I think it'll be a better game in the end for it. But that's why we're here. So.
Of course, really, yeah. I mean, I find it funny, like you were saying that you get very good with the game because you play a lot as devs. Like, I've heard horror stories where like devs will play a game a lot, practicing, beta testing, whatnot, and then they'll take it to a convention only find out it's just way too hard because developers have kind of just learnt the game too much. So, yeah.
Well, fingers crossed, we keep the game not just constantly played by us, but we always make sure that our friends, our colleagues in our day jobs play the game as well. So fresh people playing it all the time and get as much feedback as possible.
What formats will BeeBeeQ be on?
So we're looking at August release. Currently we have working builds for HTC Vive, which will be on Steam VR, Oculus through Steam VR, and the Oculus Store as well for Oculus Rift. We're also looking and very, very hopeful for PSVR, but that's a little bit more work. We really want to get that work done for the August release. If it's a slightly later release date, I could accept it, but I really would prefer them all to be released at the same time. We're very, very keen for PSVR, but we have to know if we can get it working first.
Of course. I mean, it's always nice to be able to release on all platforms you can in just one punt, but sometimes development is chaotic.
Sometimes it's all about time, and we'd love to be able to make this as fleshed out as possible and release on everything we can, but we are still limited on time. So
yeah, true. So where can they find BeeBeeQ?
So Popup Asylum, which is Mark and I, we are Popup Asylum. .co.uk/BeeBeeQ. There's screenshots and videos on our little website. You can follow us on Twitter at Popup Asylum. We're constantly posting up about the game, and really always looking for people who are interested in the game, and maybe organising with anyone who would like to have a little bit of a play session if they're interested. So.
Awesome. So thanks a ton for the interview.
Thank you very much.